Very nice.
Points.
Don't fish.
This is for all the points where the.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say that. You got 500 points.
What?
Yes. All right. Because they unsolicited help new kids without me having to say help the new kids.
I'm new, guys.
That's not fair.
Well, I understand that, but still, unsolicited help, that warms my Grinchian heart. Okay. Imperialism and nation-state formation. Very important concept right here, nation-state. Because a nation is one thing, and the state is something else, and a nation-state is something else. Anyway, we'll get to it. And I'm sure questions will come up because it's what you do. And
It's like the Kingdom Empire.
no. Nope. All right. Is that mine?
Uh-oh.
I'm teaching, son. Okay. All right. Imperialism. The colors tell you who owns what. That's probably the wrong, maybe the right word. But this is our imperialism map. If it is red, it is the UK, et cetera, et cetera. Blue is French. Then you got Portugal, which is, well, some African places. Notice that Brazil's not here. I find that interesting. What, Ben?
What are the pink islands like right near China that the United States?
This?
Philippines.
The Philippines. It's more of a
I thought the Philippines was like
more like a fuchsia, isn't it? Anyway, sorry, it's pink. All right. European nations began creating transoceanic colonies, colonial empires, all over the place. The reason that the Americas aren't here is because that's old colonies. This is new colonies. This is the second wave of colonization. This is heavy-duty imperialism because now we know what we're doing, we being the colonizers, and we know how to be more successful at it. So let's go. And we have better medicine and guns. Okay. And lots of them don't. So there you go. Even Italy gets involved. Germany gets built and then gets right to work. Belgium, the little country that with the super flex. Tiny little country, big colony. Anybody know what colony that is?
The Congo.
The Congo. The Belgians had the Congo. King Leopold, there's a book called King Leopold's Ghost, which deals with all that. All right. Oh, old imperialism, new imperialism. Woohoo! There you go. So the whole world, in essence, has been influenced by a pretty big handful of countries at different parts of time, like UK, Portugal, France, Spain, and Netherlands. These 5 are old and new players. They've been involved since the beginning. The ones below that are the new imperialists. They, for a couple of reasons. One, Belgium wasn't a country then. The United States wasn't a country then. Italy wasn't a country. Germany wasn't a country. Turkey wasn't a country. So they couldn't have been, imperialists because they were like part of somebody else or separate little states. So, and Russia just couldn't get out of its own way. All right. Some things never change. What?
And it says old imperialism versus new imperialism.
Yeah.
Is it that they're newly, under imperial rule?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like stage 2. All right. There's Europe carving up the planet. I'm going to guess England and France. Europeans use the word imperialism, domination of one nation by another nation. That's your definition. And they carved up Africa and Eastern Asia without anybody's permission. What is her picture?
Oh, it's moving. It doesn't move on there, but it's a stack of frogs, and someone's petting the frogs.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Scotto, but your picture freaked me out for a second. It's a lot bigger on my TV. Okay. Here we go. More imperialism. European nations no longer content to trade with other people. What they are going for now is rule. Controlling, conquering, ruling huge swaths of land, ruling large populations, being the man. except England, because there was Queen Victoria. And I'm sure there may have been others, but I know Queen Victoria. She ruled for a long time. The queens seem to rule longer than the kings. What's that?
It lasts like 80 years.
Yeah. Korean Empire, Singapore's big. All right. Anyway, Madagascar. Oh, yeah, it is French. That's why you get French vanilla from Madagascar. The best vanilla you get in Madagascar. And lemurs. Okay. Julian? Heck yeah. All right. Industrialists sought new sources of raw materials and new markets. Again, the reason for imperialism, we've well established these last few lectures. We need resources to make our stuff. And then we need people to buy the stuff we make with the resources we take. Or they. No, America does it. Anyway. But this was the thing. It was all about business at the personal level and at the national level. All right. There are 40 million people beyond the gateway of the Congo, and the cotton spinners of Manchester are waiting to clothe them. Sir.
What would you say was the most sought after area for natural resources?
Depends on the resource. That's a horrible question. Minerals, wherever, and in all honesty, wherever it's cheapest, wherever you can exploit it the most efficiently, and wherever it's well, oil is obvious because the only place they found it at that time because of technology would be Southwest Asia. As far as farmland, wherever there's huge areas of open farmland so you can do your plantation, South America would have been first. The Americas would have been first. Now you just got to find areas on the planet that can support large plantations and aren't too mountainous and aren't too, so probably parts of Africa, Australia, well, on the coast.
Like Indonesia and the Philippines.
Yeah, I mean,
But those are
from a temperature standpoint, the South Pacific is going to work and Southeast Asia is going to work because it can grow cotton, tobacco, and things like that. It's just a question of finding the land. So anywhere flat.
there were like a lot of plantations there, like in colonization.
Right, but again, during the time of the first colonization and the early part of this one, the markets weren't as large. So they can meet demand. As markets grow, you've got to figure out ways to meet demand. And we're not vertically farming yet. We're not hydroponicing yet. So you have to have land. And fortunately, we know how to make more of it. I already did that. Here we go. What are the historical circumstances surrounding Henry Stanley's observations about Africa? And again, that's a contextualization. So keeping things in context, how do we know this now? Why didn't we assume it then, you know? How is it? It takes us to 1872 before this quote comes about. So putting things in context, prior to that, we don't know the number of people in the Congo. We can't get into the center of Africa. Prior to this, the mills in Manchester cannot produce enough clothing for 40 million people. So all these things have to come together. So contextually speaking, it has to be now. Then it has to be. And that's what I want you to think about. Overpopulation in parts of Europe motivated imperialist expansion to the great opportunity for Europe elsewhere. Yes. Australia and other colonies, India, parts of Africa, South Africa, the French in Algiers, Caribbean islands, South Pacific islands. Because of all the agricultural advancements, because of all the improvements in medicine and health and hygiene, because at varying intervals the quality of life is improving, fewer people are dying and people are still being born because most of the world back then, well, most of the Western world is still Catholic. And late 19th century Catholicism was not a fan of birth control. So you had children. So there are more mouths to feed. There's overpopulation. There's less land. Question? Oh, just scratch it. I know it was like, I think I want to ask. Okay, like in the loaded position. Okay. So colonies gave people an opportunity to go somewhere else, or to remove those elements you don't want there anymore. Okay. Oh, look. America in 1898. Ooh, Anybody know who the president was in 1898? I know you're a freshman and a senior, but still. Anybody? Imperialist president?
Wilson? Is it Woodrow?
Wait, who? Who said McKinley? Did you look it up?
No,
Did she look it up?
no, I'm not a snitch.
So she did.
I was gonna say he was assassinated. That was gonna be another hint. But McKinley was president then. What? No? Okay. Okay. Anyway, come on. There we go. All right. So, okay. So scientific racism outlined. Scientific racism. Oh, I know what this is. Okay. Outlined by Count Gobineau in an essay on the inequality of the human races. Okay, folks. This is your justification piece number one for colonization and new imperialism. Now, what do you suppose Monsieur Gobineau is basing his essay on? Or better yet, who?
Why some races are worse than us?
Well, what's this based on? Like, what's going to prompt him to write this? What information in the 19th century is going to prompt him to write this? Oh, wait.
Africans are savages.
Oh, Tyler just joined. All right. Anybody?
Darwinism?
Darwinism. Our good friend Chuck. Chuck Darwin, who went to the Galapagos Islands, which is a place I really want to go because I want to see swimming and diving iguanas. And I want to know how animals that don't swim got there.
Oh, that's
I know the island broke off. I know.
No, but I saw that about that. It was pretty cool. These iguanas just like floated on logs over there.
There you go. Accidental dispersion. Okay. Anyway, Darwin did research on what initially? Anybody? What animals?
The bird.
What bird? The finch. Excellent. Good. And you notice that different finches in different parts of the world. Are you looking this up?
What?
Come on, people. It's so much more impressive when there aren't computers in front of you. Different finches have different beaks, and different beaks allow them to do different. There's different utilitarian.
Big beaks are not small.
Right.
Beaks are insects.
And so they figured that out, and they noticed that birds with big beaks, where there weren't a lot of seeds, tended to die, and birds with other beaks tended to not die. And then eventually, one came out with the appropriate beak. That's what Darwin was looking at. Now, I don't know. I'm not a Darwinist. I don't, as far as our Darwinologist, as someone who studies the man. He very well could have been just another person in this time period. And he too could have had people broken down like this. I don't know. All I know is that his science was based on observation of animals. And we know it's science because, well, it was observed, replicated. Anyway.
He also predicted, or like literally was discovered like 5 years later.
What?
He predicted his discovery of the Archaeopteryx.
Of the what?
It's the link between dinosaurs and birds.
Oh, cool. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, if you go to the museum in Raleigh, the whale has wings. The whale skeleton has little tiny appendages out of its back.
Oh yeah.
Bones. Yep. Yeah, I know, but it's cool to see it. So out of Darwin's thing, there are these types of people, these social Darwinists, who begin to break man down into various groups. Gosh, this is how our class started. Anyway. I've been able to distinguish 3 great and clearly marked races of humans: the black, the yellow, the white. The Negroid variety, bless you, is the lowest and stands at the foot of the ladder. His intellect will always move within a very narrow circle. He is not, however, a mere brute. Oh, that's nice. We can see signs of a powerful energy, however crude its objects. If his mental faculties are dull or even non-existent, he has an intensity of desire. Many of his senses, especially taste and smell, are developed to the extent unknown to the other 2 races. The very strength of his sensations is the most striking proof of his inferiority. All food is good in his eyes. Nothing disgusts or repels him. What he desires is to eat furiously, and to excess. No carrion, that's just a fancy word for meat, is too revolting to be swallowed by him.
On purpose.
Yeah, it's on purpose. Well, in this is couched through this speech. You see how he feels about himself and his people. Anyway, I'm not going to continue because I'm just going to get angry. So, all right. So there you go.
How did no one else get into before?
What do you mean?
Like others, like people have different colors too.
They did. Of course, they noticed it. They noticed it when they had slaves. They noticed it on the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean. They noticed it all the time. It's not new. That's the interesting thing. That's a good point. It's not like they're brown. Like they've known it. Why it comes out in this time period, again, that's contextual. Think about all the science and the Enlightenment and everything that's been going on leading us to this point. You know, has this always been an undercurrent, and now they have what they think is science to say it out loud? You know, all you need is the right thing to give you courage, I guess. I don't know. But still, we still don't have, like, we still haven't split the gene. Like, we still haven't got down to DNA yet or any of that stuff yet. We still don't know that. This is still based on all they know. I mean, there was a science back then called phrenology. Anybody know what that was? No?
I know.
Called what?
There's
Phrenology?
like
Study of birds.
So bumps, that's it. Studying the bumps on your head. You can figure out someone's character and someone's intellect by feeling the contours of their head. That was a science.
That's technically true, but no.
If something is technically true, then you can't follow it with no.
It's like if you have a big brain, you're gonna be quite lucky.
Okay, do this. That's the size of your brain.
Nah, I feel stupid.
Average.
Yep, that's the average brain right there.
Yeah.
Do this.
Some people have bigger. And
That's
some
your heart.
people have like bigger parts of the brain.
I got a bigger heart than I feel brain.
All right,
Wow.
So if you have bigger hands, that means your brain is bigger.
it's the average brain size. Anyway, all right. Okay, yeah. Identify the bias contained in Count Gobineau's views on race. Yeah, I would definitely. That's definitely some good document analysis there. Figure out who he is and what he believes on your own time. Not that it's not important. I hate the fact that I'm glossing over it. Gobineau argued differences exist among human races. Black people naturally inferior to whites. Black people are actually, according to him, black people are inferior to everybody. The word savage that you used earlier comes from the French sauvage, which back in the day, all that really meant was non-Christian. It evolved over time to mean what it means today connotatively, but it came from you were Christian or you were not. Like gauche, you know, left in French is gauche, okay, and left-handedness is seen as being, and gauche in non-French terms means tacky or gaudish or odd. If someone is gauche, they are rude and not very refined, and that's how left-handed people were seen for the longest time. I'm old enough to remember in kindergarten having the teacher take my pencil out of my left hand to make me write right-handed, because left-handedness was seen as a sign of mental retardation. Basically, it was seen as a sign of a bunch of other things, and all superstitious based. And my grandfather went to school and said, "Don't do that again." And like most left-handed people stutter. Well, most stutterers are left-handed. Sorry. Most people with speech impediments are left-handed because of that side of the brain. Brain's fascinating. Now you're in my wheelhouse. All right. You think I know history? Oh, there he is. Chuck. Social Darwinists applied Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection to a study of humans. It was never intended for this, as far as we know. What? Dude, mutton chops, man. He looks like a who. He could live in Whoville. What, mutton chops?
Yeah.
The forces which are working out the great scheme of perfect happiness, taking no account of incidental suffering, blah, 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 blah. In the history of the world, are they doing all they can to further the survival of the unfittest? So what some people are saying during this time period is that this help that we're giving to Africans. I see you. Is that a stretch or a question? Okay. Maybe a disservice. Remember that one gentleman during the Industrial Revolution said that poor people should stop having kids because they're always going to be poor. The poor are always going to be poor. In North Carolina, we sterilized black women so they wouldn't have more kids in the 1950s. So, I mean, it's been going on for a while, yes.
Do you know like what the study was about? What the study was, or just that thing was?
His or this social Darwinism?
No, that's social Darwinism.
There, I don't know if there was one, like who the preeminent social Darwinist was, but it was a very widely held, and once it gets roots, it grows legs, then it goes, and it's used to justify a lot of stuff. All right, it's a good question. Social Darwinists saw gaps between rich and poor. They saw imperial powers and the imperialized as the natural order of things. That basically countries that were successful are supposed to be successful. And countries that struggle are going to struggle because of who's in them. It's just the way it is. There are supposed to be better winners and losers. That's just the way it works. Oh, I see. Okay. I was looking at the little cartoon to make sense of it, and I was reading, barbarism, oppression, ignorance, vice, brutality, superstition, cannibalism, slavery, cruelty, more vice, and up in the top, she's holding liberty and something else. So you see America and England carrying these countries out of their stuff. All right. And by the way, that's a valid document. You can contextualize that. You can do all sorts of stuff with that. Bias. Truly, this earth is a trophy cup for the industrious man, and this rightly so. In the service of natural selection, he who does not possess the force to secure his Lebensraum, living space, that's what Hitler believed Germany needed. They went into Poland and into Russia to fulfill Lebensraum. They needed farmland to feed the German people, to feed the master race. They saw it as their birthright, as these people. Remember, Germany's roughly created in the 1870s, right parallel to this. And it's ironic, too, because before World War I and then after World War I, Germany was a happening, hippie, liberal place where all the artists went. And then Depression came, and then Hitler. And if necessary, to enlarge it, does not deserve to possess the necessities of life. He must step aside and allow stronger people to pass him by. So everybody wants this, is what this person is arguing. Every country desires room to grow, room to feed its people. But if someone is better capable of using that land, you need to step aside and let them do it. That's what he's arguing. Yes, you may. Oh, I thought you wanted to get water.
No.
Oh, okay. And that's from Adolf Hitler. All right. This also is a justification for genocide. One of the many ways to justify genocide. England used this with the Irish because they thought the Irish were not using the land effectively. So let people know how to farm, and you just go away. What?
Did the British commit genocide against Irish?
Yes. Passive genocide. In England, they passed the Corn Laws, and then the famine happened. So everything grown in Ireland had to feed England first. So even after the potato died, there was a famine. They're like, sorry, we get your food. They did nothing to help, which in the Geneva Convention is a form of genocide. No, it is. I wrote the curriculum. What? Okay, you're sitting there. It is. There are all sorts of things. You can make the argument that gangs is a form of passive genocide done by the American government to let them kill themselves. So, poverty does funny things. Not funny, haha. The imperative of superior Europeans to civilize the inferior became known as the white man's burden. Rudyard Kipling, the man who gave us the Jungle Book, gave us this lovely poem. Take up the white man's burden to save our little brown brothers. Oh, there it is. Send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness, unfluttered folk and wild. Your new caught sullen peoples, half devil and half child. But the one thing through all this, as we're reading these, and I read these, and I inflect my bias for good, bad, or the other, is to always remember whenever you're reading anything historically, whether it's you or you people out there, they knew what they knew. And in 1878, this is what they believed, and this is what they knew, and this is the information they had. And the information they had was not as widespread as our information. And the information they had was definitely not in all corners of the world. So this is just based on his history, his world's history, where they are in the 1880s. You've got to remember, whenever you're looking at an event in history, to try your best to get in that zeitgeist, to get in that moment, that time, and see it. That's why the whole contextual piece is so important, to try and understand why they would dare say this. I'm not excusing it, like saying like that's not a horrible way to look at people. But imagine them here. Like flip the switch for just a second, and imagine every single person in history here. Not the technology part of it, just the social part of it, just the way it looks, and the fact that there are women and men in school, and the fact that there is people of different colors and different socioeconomics, and the fact that, I mean, how it works. I don't know what they think, but I know they probably wouldn't like it. So just remember that. All right. Missionaries believe Europeans had a duty to undertake the civilizing mission. This is not only to bring them to God, but to bring them to other things as well. Christianity and technology to the less fortunate. One advantage that the last 20 years has over the rest of the history of the world, whether you use it or not is up to you, is if you want to, it is much easier today to learn about others. You'll never be able to literally walk in your shoes, but you can learn about others and understand others, and understand that technology is relative. To us, technology, what are you doing on the phone? To us, technology is the next best thing, but literally speaking, a fork is technology. Anything that is created that makes the previous exercise easier and more efficient is technology. From the ink and quill to a pencil to a refillable pencil. Back when the first ever erasable pen came out, I thought that was it. That was the greatest thing ever, an erasable pen. It's the greatest thing ever, the Scripto erasable pen. All right. When the imperialist wants a new market for his goods, he sends a missionary to teach the gospel of peace. The natives kill the missionary. The imperialist flies to arms in defense of religion, fights for it, conquers it, and takes the market as a reward from heaven. George Bernard Shaw, Irish writer. Yeah.
So, I mean, doesn't this, like, in a way, sort of still go on today? Like, like the European American, I mean, like, those who like Christians, sort of traveling these forms of spreading their Christianity, technology, like, it's sort of like an ongoing thing.
Continuity. Actually, where are a lot of missions going now? America and Europe. When we went to England, it's forever ago now, like every third church was a restaurant, a library, a bookstore. Some really audacious people turned old churches into pubs. But Europe, now, because think about, okay, now let's back up and think about it historically. You had the Middle Ages, you had the church being influence. Then you get the Enlightenment, and they changed calendars, and they turned Notre Dame into the Cathedral of Learning or whatever. And so France, specifically, and Europe as a whole, have really had to live with the Catholic Church in all its power. And so there's an anti-religious sect, or kind of like fervor in parts of Europe, not all of it, but that's because of the history associated with the Catholic Church. So, so I don't know, but you're right. There are more missions, and there are a lot more mission trips in America. So, which I find interesting. All right, technological superiority, basically the machine gun. Quinine, which is what allowed Europeans, English and Dutch primarily, to deal with malaria. Quinine is what's in gin and tonic and gin and tonics. So that was the quinine is in the drink. It's good for the stomach. It doesn't cure malaria. It just abates the symptoms of malaria. The telegraph, if you can get word in, get word back and forth. We need help. This is how it's going. And then steamships allow you to get upriver, because the rivers in Africa are rough. The Heart of Darkness is one of my favorite books, and it's about a trader, Trader, a guy named Kurtz, and his journey to go into Africa and to find this guy who goes nuts in Africa. It became Apocalypse Now. It was a Vietnam movie which was adapted from this book. Anyway, whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun. They have not. The machine gun was invented to save lives. Not cap. True. No cap. It was invented. If I have a machine gun, how many people can one man kill? So how many of your people are saved? A lot. The problem was, and you'll see this in World War II, is soon everybody has one. But the purpose of it was to save lives. Or the fact that the Nobel Peace Prize is named for somebody who invented dynamite. Nobel invented dynamite. Yeah. They needed it for mining. That application is great, but once it gets to the limbs fall off. All right, bodies go everywhere. All right. Imperialist power seize colonies. That's direct control. We go in and we're going to run you. Or they establish protectorates, which is basically you belong to me. But I'm going to let you stay in charge because I like you. You're welcome. Or spheres of influence. I'm not going to send anybody to your countries. That'll make it so difficult for you to sell anything and make any kind of money that you're going to cave. So you have direct control. You have protectorates, which most were protectorates because that was the most cost effective of those two. Direct control means you're taking your government, you're moving it there, you have people there, you have troops there. Or sphere, like England has a huge sphere of influence in and around China. They don't invade China, they wouldn't win. But they economically influence China because they get them all hooked on opium.
They had opium.
The poppy seed in Afghanistan is the #1 export. That's how you get morphine too, for medicine. What?
What was the thing where like a bunch of poppies showed up on someone's shore and everyone got addicted to it? Everyone got it. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
So, I just realized, my brother told me at one point, if you eat a one poppy seed muffin, you'll fail a drug test. And now I just realized.
Yes, if you eat a poppy seed muffin, you'll fail a drug test.
I don't know why that took
Soon enough, shortly thereafter, eating the muffin. Yes. Come on, there was opium. There was opium in Wizard of Oz. when she's running through the poppy field, and the witch is like, poppies, and she gets all high and passes out.
I don't remember that song.
I remember that.
And then Galinda makes it snow. Ironic.
I just remember when the house fell.
And she wakes up. Huh? Probably.
No, it was.
Of course it was. Nice. Because it was the 1930s. And asbestos is cool. We'll put it in all our naval vessels too. And then our ceiling tiles and everywhere back in the day. All right. But again, they didn't know. Like, part of cancel culture does bug me.
Asbestos has been canceled for like 10 years.
No, I'm not talking about asbestos. I'm not. No, if it causes cancer, it should probably go away. No. I just mean some of it I can get on board with, and then some of it stems from a lack of context. Just if you don't like it, don't do it. Don't watch it. Don't read it. Don't listen to it. But if people are out there spouting things that are horrible, then the amendment doesn't. Well, anyway, it doesn't apply to that. So there has to be a little bit like this. You can't sit here and hate all these people. One, they can't defend themselves. Two, this is what they knew. Yes, Disney films are horrible. From Dumbo back. I mean, I have a copy of The Song of the South. Has anybody ever seen that movie?
Yeah, we watched it in elementary school.
What?
It's and first grade we watched it.
First
We
grade.
did the
Did she explain it, or was it just cool songs?
I don't really remember.
Why would
we
you
just
shut-
sang the songs.
Okay.
What was this name of the song?
It was.
No, but it's about anyway.
What's it about?
It's not good.
It's yeah, it's not in the vault. Trust me. Actually, it is in the vault. It's never gonna make it on Disney Plus. I'll tell you that right now. They're changing Splash Mountain,
Yeah.
Oh,
Princess and the Frog.
which they should anyway.
Is that what it's about?
Where's Splash Mountain?
Yeah, Splash Mountain is all about Uncle Remus and the Song of the South. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What's Splash Mountain.
All right, hold on. We'll talk about it one day. All right. At Disney World, water spoon.
I've been there twice.
Okay.
I was really little.
Yeah, no, I know. I keep forgetting your face.
It was terrible.
It's about stories told by a former slave who lives on a farm, and he tells all these white kids, these little white children, these stories about these different characters. That's, the crows are black, and oh yeah.
It's this dude. It's just
What?
Everything's animated except for this guy. You know this movie? Oh, and
That's what
Who's that
Uncle,
actor?
and this
that's
What's
what
bad about
Uncle
it?
Remus said. It's just stereotypical. Everything was stereotypical.
And they had like crows named Jim.
Yeah, the crow named Jim. Oh hi. Hello.
Well, that's a little much.
All right. The British rule in India. Speaking of white people and brown people, let's go to India. All right. No one whiter than a Brit. Except maybe Ed Sheeran. If he was a rapper, his name would be MC Wonder Bread. All right. In the 1600s, the British East India Company, remember them? Established factories in Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta as the Mughal Empire weakened. Mughal Empire is an example of what?
Gunpowder.
Excelente. Gunpowder Empire. Can you name any of the others?
You got the Ottomans. You got the Ottomans, the Suits,
Safavids?
and then you got maybe the Qing or the Chinese.
The Qing. And then there's the Mongols, and there's one other. Good.
What's the one other?
And there was Safavids and another. The Ottomans, Safavids, Mughals, Mongols, Qing.
There's another Muslim one.
Yeah, another Muslim one. That's what I thought.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that one is.
Yeah. Anybody out here now?
West Africa.
Anybody remember the other Muslim gunpowder empire? Come on. Kylie, come on. Somebody. Olivia. Miss Sims. Mali. No, that was early.
I'm gonna get it. That's the link in the map because it's a country
All right.
now.
Sunni.
Part of it.
No, that's not.
No.
wait.
Mali, yeah. Mali.
One was Sunni, one was Shia. Right. All right. Moving
The
on.
Safavids or Shia?
Yes. All right, the Mughal Empire declined. Muslim princes called Nawabs asserted regional control, made deals with the British, made deals with the Dutch, and made deals with the French. This will become a bigger issue in like 1948. The Muslim and Hindu issue. And this is also one of the things that tends to get colonizing countries in trouble, is the group that they pick to rule, in the protectorate, like, you guys are going to rule for me. Sometimes they pick the group of people who are the majority population and it goes well. Sometimes they don't pick the group that's the majority and you get Rwanda. So they pick one group, and then that one group, because they have the power, at the end of the day, can either be not loved, but accepted by the locals, or the locals are just waiting for the British to leave or the French to leave so they can go after them.
Good night. That's my
Yep.
Thank you.
Renaissance-ish type art, or at least their art is not three-dimensional with perspective then. All right. So, whoops, sorry. So Maharathas were devout Hindus who challenged Muslim sultans, which further weakened the Mughals. Sultan Aurangzeb died fighting them. So again, remember, the Muslims may have the voice of authority. They may have the backing of Britain or the French or the Dutch, depending upon when it takes place. But the Hindus have more Hindus have a lot more people. The Hindu population is a larger population than the Muslim population. It always has been. Sir.
I think the West African Empire was the Songhai.
Okay, thank you. Song Songhay, that one.
Songhai.
Songhai, yes. Okay. All right. Is that easier for you to see?
Oh, no, so that's the other way.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't care. I was just wondering. By 1750, European outposts staffed by company men who organized trade. Okay, so basically by 1750, the British are going to put British company people in these houses, and they're going to make decisions. They're not going to use the locals directly anymore. And they protect the warehouses, and they protect the offices, and they're there to make sure that these people do what they're supposed to do, and I get my tea. That's what they say. And cotton. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Bye, Kylie.
Who's that?
What?
That kid on top of the drum. Right there. What is his deal?
The guy that's floating?
What is it?
He's sitting on an invisible soccer ball. No, I don't know.
Because it was so obvious.
I just think that's hysterical because I've looked at that. I've seen this picture before and never noticed the levitating.
If the dude's so strong, he's holding with 1 foot.
Imagine the explosion.
All right, company men often hired and trained Indian troops called sepoy. Sepoy.
That's how they train the troops.
Yep. No, to levitate.
Sit up. Levitating.
He's sitting down behind them, he just doesn't have a shadow.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, he's too big.
No, he's definitely floating.
Way. He's too big.
It's Peter Pan.
I
All right.
think the drum fell on him.
All right. The Brit.
It's like finding a floating guy in the picture and just waiting for somebody to.
The most important thing on this slide is the troops are called the sepoy. All right. Now,
He doesn't have a shadow.
the British East India Company overthrew the Nawab in Bengal and then received permission from weak Mughal rulers to govern the area. So they got rid of the Muslim people in charge. No, the others in charge. And the Mughals there were like, you know what? If you rule, we'll be okay. And we'll agree with you. That way, this way they can kind of keep their status. And they can undermine the status of the other people, which is, competition is competition. So there you go. All right. The British Raj, or reign, began in Bengal as the British East India Company transformed from traders to rulers. So the British rule of India begins here in Bengal. And instead of just being a trading company, they move in. One thing of note during this whole mercantilist time from roughly the 1500s to when this occurs, the British government gave a lot of these companies a lot of autonomy. They had their own constitutions, their own set of laws, they had their own way of doing things. So long as they gave England their cut, they didn't care. So some of these agencies had a history of rule anyway, so it wasn't that much of a stretch. But now they can have direct control over their interests. By 1818, after defeating the French, the British East India Company extended the British Raj to most of the subcontinent. When were they fighting the French around 1818? Napoleonic Wars, very good. That's okay. That's all right. They were fighting the war. They were fighting with America too. See, the War of 1812 was them saying, "Look, take me back. You know what? You're not going to do any better than with me." The War of 1812 was the ex-boyfriend trying to convince them to come back. Are you really better off without me? How has these 30 years been? Come on back. Yeah.
Was there like a French company in India before?
Well, France had India before anybody, and then the 7 Years' War happened. So they still had trading out. They still had contacts. They still had their hands in India, but not directly. Then it's official. They're done in 1818. Yes, sir.
No,
I'm gonna get one. All right. British imperialism in India focused on economic gains, but political and cultural imperialism also led to British-style social reform. So even though, and this is going to happen everywhere, social imperialism is an inevitability. It can be overt. You're going to convert to our religion. You're going to dress the way we want you to dress. Or it can be subtle, where the locals see that if they adopt the imperialist customs, ways of life, maybe dress, that their station will change, that how they're viewed, that opportunities will open for them, that maybe it's better for them if they look at some of these different ways of doing things. It's almost like a reverse acculturation. Because to acculturate is when you are the smaller population and you take on some of the traits of the larger population, but you still retain some of your own. This is different because this is the native population looking at what the British are eating or doing or wearing or how their government works or how their laws work and going, hey, maybe we should do that. Sometimes it's overt. You're going to hear, we're going to build schools and you're going to learn English and you're going to, yes, sir. Yeah. And you're going to, like we did with Native Americans, we took the children off the reservations, put them in American schools, made them dress like Americans, taught them English, tried to make them as American as possible. Indian princes, Muslim and Hindu, were allowed to rule. So those people who stayed in charge, just answer to the crown, don't get too crazy. These people are able to gain a lot of power during this time period. Again, when looking at how history is going to play out, two different groups, two different cultures, they have two different ways of looking at the world. They're both going to have power in certain parts of India. I see you, to a degree, under the overall power of Britain. But then Britain's going to leave eventually. And these two have to reconcile. Yes, sir.
So the Mughal Empire, like these Indian princes are from that empire, so they should be Muslim, right?
Well, sure, but the Mughal Empire, the hold any empire has on all of the land is not going to be uniform throughout. So there could be a stronger Muslim hold in this part of the Mughal Empire, and there could be a less there could be a stronger Hindu hold there. And because the Mughal Empire is weakening, those people are going to feel emboldened to kind of reassert their authority. And so you're going to have princes, because even though you're ruling me, I'm still a prince. So you're going to leave, you're going to die, I'm still a prince. So you can't take away birthright, you can't take away title. You can take away what authority I may have over people, but that's only temporary.
So these are all like, I think really back then.
Well, no, but it's just that family.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the family is.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
Like before the movie.
Yes, the Sepoy Mutiny occurred, angry about bullets. Yeah, remember, Muslims don't eat pig. This just in. And to keep the bullets clean, they were put in packaging, and the bullets were coated with grease, and the grease was made from pig fat. So when you had to open up the pack with your teeth, you ended up eating pig. Well, and so they didn't do it. They were also becoming more and more frustrated with the rules, and this just kind of gave them an opportunity to have a little mutiny, a little revolt, and they did. By 1857. So these little pockets of uprisings, you go back to 1798, and you go to the United States, and then you go to France, and remember we talked about how Italy becomes independent finally, and Germany unifies, and Greece becomes independent, and Serbia and Ireland's going to try. The Americas all become independent. It's going to find its way to the other places. Everything about old imperialism makes its way to new imperialism. The countries that embark upon it, and the countries that are imperialized pushing back against it. It's all going to happen. Continuity and change. The corny Sepoy Mutiny video. Oh, that's a video. Oh, it's corny. Don't worry about it. That's where the main part of the mutiny was felt, as well as in the port of Goa. Notice, too, that the green part is British rule and the not green part is not British rule. So, yes, sir.
Do you know approximately how many people died?
No.
Especially Sepoy.
No. It was, and I don't think it, I'm not, I should, but the rebellion spread across the country, but the British government intervened, squashed the rebellion, and then they went and established direct rule in more parts of India. You want to end the revolution, you do this. I'll go back. You do that. That will end the revolution. All right. I'll go back to that slide. So there's the execution of this Sepoy leadership. It was literally murder. I've seen many bloody and awful sights lately, but such as the one I witnessed yesterday, I pray to never see again. The women were all spread by their screams, spared, but their screams and seeing their husbands and sons butchered were most painful. Heaven knows, I feel no pity. But when some old gray bearded man is brought and shot before your very eyes, hard must be the man's heart, I think, who can look on with indifference. Like, I don't feel sorry for him. It's just hard to look at. And there's execution by blowing from a.
What?
What?
They would just fire a cannon into your body?
Yeah.
Not even like a
See, that's just a little occult.
It is, but again, I understand. But if you want to get a point across to anybody else thinking about
Yeah, that's like
it, overkill.
It's kind of
I'm not wasting a lot of time.
They have plenty. Mughal and East India Company rule replaced by Governor General of India called the Viceroy and the Secretary. So basically, all those other local native or Mughal rulers are replaced by direct voices from the crown or from the East India Company. After the Sepoy uprising, England rules India. And now what you have to do is figure out how to make it work with these other groups no longer in power. How do you make them happy enough so that you can continue to rule and make your money? Yep. And always with a band. Lord Salisbury, India's Viceroy, India's civil service for the staff, almost whatever it is. Okay. Basically, this is the bureaucracy. So this bureaucracy is established. The civil service offices are established. All your court clerks, all your official government people are built during this time period. It's almost all staffed by British people. Lower bureaucratic positions, some Indians were allowed to have. So there you go. Viceroy of India and his staff, Lord Chelmsford.
Is there like a steak in their bathroom?
What?
It's like that type of way to cook a steak. Salisbury steak.
It's also a place in England.
Those
British transformed India through massive investments in infrastructure, railroads, canals, harbors. They rebuilt cities. So in India, they do a little more. Yes, it's to help them economically, but it also helps the country as well because this stuff is going to be useful when Gandhi comes along. And trains are like #1 mode of transportation to get across such a big country. They ride on top of them, and it's pretty cool. That and jingle trucks, or jangle trucks. They're lorries. They're trucks. They decorate them. They're cool. All right. Look that way. British opened Western-style schools for children of Indian elite, English language, customs, literature, technology. Again, this is a passive way to kind of acculturate or culturally imperialize a country. We're going to give you the opportunity to go to one of our schools. An Indian nationalist movement developed relying on English as a unifying language and ideas of enlightenment inspiring liberal values. The official language of India in the year 2021 is English. Yep.
Most of them.
They have the largest English-speaking population in the world.
There's like 2.2.
Well, right, but English is the official language. Remember, official languages are not the most spoken language. Official languages are the language of government. What's on your money, how your law is written, how your sign's written, that's the official language. The United States does not have an official language officially. It just writes everything in English because we're Americans and we only know one language. If you go to Quebec, it's in French first and English second. If you go to Ireland, everything is written in Gaelic first and English second. If you go to Cherokee, North Carolina, everything is in Cherokee first and English second. That language is just pretty. Look at it.
Oh, only 10% of Indians speak English, which is still 125 million.
But again, the official language doesn't mean it's the most spoken. All right. Indian nationalist Ramohan Roy founded a society called the Brahmo Samaj. Basically, it's a way of melding the two. Taking Western styles and traditions and melding it with our historic cultural customs. Making peace with the new and the old. So you can see that the Indian, way before Gandhi, was thinking about ways to reconcile this and make peace with this and then move forward with this. So the very nature of Hinduism, for all its other things, lends itself to being able to deal with other peoples because it absorbs other things. Present system of Hindus is not well calculated to promote their political interests. So in other words, if we are unwilling to adopt some of what they do, we are going to be continually left behind. We're never going to have a voice. We have to embrace a little of theirs for the betterment of ours. Oh, wait. I just said that. The Hinduism before and Gandhi moving after. All right. Just. Oh, wait, we go back. So under this community, and they do worship the Brahman. Remember that all-powerful force. Improved westernized education system, the abolition of the caste system, education for women, end of the dowry system, and the practice of the sati. Ooh, what's that?
When the wife has to clear herself.
That's right. When the husband dies, the wife's supposed to throw herself on the fire with it. Sati.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. In Hindu customs, yes. Because women can't remarry in old Hindu cultures. And so you have just a bunch of old ladies running around with cats. So they're supposed to just jump on the fire and die with their husband. And then the dowry is the gift that the wife's family has to pay to the bride, the groom's family, to basically take the wife. If you don't give enough, he doesn't marry her. Oh, yeah. An end to underage marriage. Shoot. Okay. And then denounced all major religions and polytheism. That's interesting. Just follow the Brahman.
Isn't India a major religion?
But it's and polytheistic.
Yeah. So why would they?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know by denounce. I don't know if it means to say they don't exist or to not have them have that. I don't know what this last. These rest of these are pretty straightforward, and you see it today. How important education is to Indians today. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not a joke. It's not a disrespect. Asian populations value education more than Western populations value education for a lot of different reasons, and one of them is because as far back as the 1800s, they saw a benefit to them as a peoples for having a voice and being able to control their own lives. So there's a historical reason for that, and history becomes culture. And then others are, we're the only country in the world where every single student is promised the exact same education. If you are mentally or physically limited, in some countries you don't go to school. Or only so many levels. Girls and guys don't get the same education in every country in the world. There's not public education in every country in the world. So in China, you better only have one kid if you want the good school. If you have more than one kid, that kid doesn't get to go to the good school, and you might lose your job.
They also have laws against having more than a certain amount of.
Well, they've done away with the one child because now no one's having any kids. But it's like, if I'm a one child, no, that's just too creepy. If a girl's born and she's the only child and she marries a guy who's the only child, they could have two. But then their kids can only have one. And then their kids could have two. So it's a way they kind of control the population. But you would lose jobs, you would lose insurance, schools if you had more than one kid. So education is different for different people in the world. I kind of like what England does, where you got to pass a test to keep going.
Really? They don't do that here?
If you don't pass a test in the 10th grade, you're done.
Oh, that's good.
Not held back. Out you go. Get a job.
I mean,
What are they called? I always think of Harry Potter.
That's just scary.
Their tests. Yeah. All right. In 1885, the Indian National Congress created, and it was led by educated Hindus. It was hoping to increase the role, again, if just like why women are the first sort of the loudest abolitionist voice, why women fight for the rights of men in the beginning. Because once the men get the right, the women will follow. The rights for women will come eventually. Here, we're going to embrace an English-style education system so that we can improve our political position and the lives of our people. We're not going to get anywhere if we don't just suck it up and do it. And now maybe we can get into positions that can actually influence the lives of Indians. Indian nationalist movement failed to inspire ordinary Indians and gained little traction until the 20th century. It's very difficult to get the poor to want to do anything, and that's not because the poor don't care. It's because the poor are too busy about other things. And in a place like this that's predominantly rural in the turn of the 20th century, most of the poor don't know what's going on in Bengal or Bombay or God. They don't know. Again, information is not readily available. Biggest change. Printing press. All right, every nation secures precisely as good a government as it merits. That's interesting. If you pick men, the most highly educated of the nation cannot make a resolute struggle to secure. Okay. Anyway, all right. Basically, it's just saying that without education, we aren't moving forward. Huh. Okay. All right, and we're good. All right. Yep.